I recently had the unique opportunity to sit down with Lane Kiffin, the head football coach at Ole Miss, and dive deep into the secrets of what it takes to stand out as a high school football player. Coach Kiffin shares exactly what he looks for in athletes, how to get the exposure you need, and how to secure a D1 football scholarship in today's ever-changing world of the transfer portal. From the must-have qualities he values most to how social media can make or break your chances, Coach Kiffin shares secrets that every parent and athlete needs to hear now more than ever. And trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end because some of his answers will completely shock you. Also, as you'll be able to see, this is actually from our live event and the audio isn't perfect, so I hope you can understand.
How much do your in-person camp evaluations impact the online process? And what specific qualities are you looking for during those camp evaluations?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Because when they come to camp, you get to work with them. I always say that there's the field evaluation of their high school or clinics, and then there's when they come to our camps, and that's more important because we get to see them, we know who they're going against, we're coaching them. There's no level of competition questions that sometimes we have in high school when we're watching film, especially from out of the area. So and then you get to see how they're made up. We asked earlier about who they are, how they work, how competitive they are, and find that out in a lot.
So how do you use area coaches to gather information on players for position coaches to evaluate? How do you use that process of using area coaches?
Yeah, so they go out to other individual areas, and then throughout the spring, we'll go there. The New Year, sophomore recruit even, and then they talk to the coaches and they gather the information. A lot of times when you want to watch spring practice in parts of the country where they have that going on. And a lot of times then they're able to, now they can actually meet them and sit down with them and talk to them, and then hopefully get camp from there.
And, obviously we all know your social media. How are you using social media in terms of finding and gathering information on potential high school players who are maybe, dark horses and going?
Well, so social media really came out because of recruiting. That's really where we started on Twitter. It really wasn't this idea that we were going to do all this kind of wild stuff on Twitter. And then once we kind of got going, then Twitter became kind of an open door to kids and parents, especially because they'd be like, oh, I feel like I know you because of your Twitter. And so we kind of expanded on that, did more and more on that. Because now kids coming up and the parents seem to feel like when they do come visit us, they already know us, or maybe they're deciding whether to visit and they're like, oh man, I've seen on Twitter, that place is pretty cool. And they got a really cool coaching staff, and the players seem to have a lot of fun on their videos on social media. So we kind of use that more now for marketing.
And so on the other side of that, are your coaches at all using social media to find players, and maybe even some dark horse players that people don't know? Like, are your area coaches using X, for example, or whatever social media to find some players that could be great for the fits as well?
I think that happens sometimes. I think sometimes some kids DM the coaches, or someone recruiting, there's so many recruiting people now, and or the coaches send it to the recruiting people, and then they make cuts from there and evaluate for us.
And what recommendations do you have for athletes in regards to social media and building a brand as young as possible due to getting in front of coaches, NIL opportunity? What are some recommendations you have for young athletes with social and building their brand?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to protect their brand by what they put on there. Myself, if I was looking at kids' social media, I feel like I can kind of tell a lot about them, and maybe some things that they put on there that say, okay, that really doesn't rub me the right way. That a kid putting that stuff on there on social media doesn't really positively show himself, or if he was already part of our program, we want that those type of things out there. So then you go the opposite way. You're going to put kind of wild, crazy things out there that, you know, controversial and stuff. You better not have any social media because certainly in my opinion, not going to impact you positively. It's not like the obsession of how many followers you have and those type of things. You know, followers has nothing to do with whether you're going to be recruited.
It's not like, oh, you have more followers, now you have a better chance of getting recruited.
Yes, big misconception somehow.
All right, how has your recruiting philosophy evolved over the past few years with NIL?
Well, the portal kind of sped up the process because the windows are so small because the kids have to make decisions. So kind of jokingly said it's like speed dating. Where for the high school process we need a couple of years of relationships with the kids and families. So unfortunately, this is what it is. The windows are so small, and kids go in and then they got to get enrolled, you know, in a couple of weeks. So a lot of times in the portal now, you just have one visit with them, your first visit. So I obviously prefer the old way where we got to know them more often, by more interactions with them. So, and also for them, so they have a better feeling for us too, so they know what they're going to do.
How much emphasis do you place on a player's character, commitment, leadership qualities during the recruitment process versus just talent?
A lot. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, because that was always important, but because of the transfer now, I feel it's more important because if they don't have the qualities, a lot of times, as soon as they hit a rough patch, you know, or they don't have good guidance from parents too, that can be an issue too, where they hit a rough patch, they don't like where they're in depth, so they just pick up and leave, you know, instead of, you know, fighting through some adversity. So that's really big on what we look for now.
I know you mentioned a lot of culture and building your culture. With that, what are some things that when you're recruiting your high school players that you really look for a good fit in a part of the culture?
I think it goes back, like you mentioned, different culture grades and what we're looking for. And guys that really love football, you know, if I were to say, you know, on here, all the football players watching, you know, raise your hand if you love football. Everybody would raise their hand if they would love that. But no, often they just love what football gives them. The attention, wearing a jersey around school, you know, make money, versus really loving the game and loving to practice and loving their craft and getting better at it, improvement day to day. And then that's very important because to me, if you don't really have a passion for that, again, once things don't go your way, you're very often to kind of throw in the towel, not try as hard and not compete, versus if you're really about it, you're trying to get better regardless of where you are on the depth chart, regardless of how the game is going, regardless of what year you are, regardless of what your team's record is, you're the same type of effort.
For players that are, you know, in high school right now, what's a recommendation or two you would have for them to better market themselves and get themselves out in front of coaches?
Well, I think the camps are really big. You know, the camps seem, especially now you have the mega camps, and there's so many coaches there able to watch them. And make sure you introduce yourself to the coaches and so that they know who you are. And get to the front of the lines, you know. I was gonna notice the guy sitting in the back, let everything turns, like, you know, you want to stand out as far as your competitiveness, that, hey, this guy really wants it. So I know the camps are hard to get to, and sometimes financially to go to all the different schools, but now these mega camps allow so many people to see you. That's a really good way.
What's more important to you? Physical attributes of an athlete with that upside, or a player's playmaking ability and football IQ?
That's a great start for Richie. It's really a balance of the two. And it can't be too heavy without the other. So, you know, there's got to be enough ability there and playmaking ability to be able to make significant plays in competitive high-level college football. But probably more important is the makeup, especially nowadays. It's always been that way, but more than ever, I think, because of the transfer portal and what kids are made up of and how they want to compete, how they want to be able to battle every day and fight through adversity. We really look a lot for that now because it's kind of set up where now you are the same group or you just leave, after your first year and basically every year. So now more than ever, we're really looking at kids that want to do things the right way, want to be their best every day, that want to be in the weight room, in the classroom, and do a great job representing our university.
I love that. Okay, awesome. Next question. What qualities, responsibilities do you look for in a captain? What does he need to see? What do you need to see from a freshman or lower depth chart player to catch your attention?
Yeah, so we have kind of different categories of our culture. We're kind of moving for 4 categories. So I'll speak on culture 1, which is like the captains, the leaders. These are guys that do everything the right way when no one's watching. These are guys that, like culture 2, which is the next step. They do the right thing, but then they don't necessarily bring others up with them. So our leaders, our culture 1, they're the guys that they're setting the standard and they're also pushing and bringing people up with them. And always understanding that the team is more important than themselves and that they'll only go so far as the team does. So those would be the captain traits that we're looking for. Really, at the end of the day, they're unselfish.
Okay. What do you look for on some of the players that aren't at the top of the depth chart to catch your attention? What are some things they do that really catch your attention?
Well, their ability to work all the time when things aren't going their way. Maybe down a service team or they maybe down on the depth chart, and do they let that affect their attitude and their effort? That's a really big thing we look for because everybody wants to do great. Everybody comes out on fire day 1 and 10, and when things are going well, but when they're not, and are they still working the same, or do they change that effort level? And very often, guys that we tell them all the time, there's somebody that's going to make significant plays week 8, week 9, week 10 of the season, and isn't a big name starter type guy at the beginning of his life, at the beginning of the year. So I encourage you, wherever you're on the depth chart, to make sure you're working because you really don't know when your time is coming. And the worst thing you can do is not be ready because you're sitting there, well, I'm not going to go in, I'm on the bench. And then all of a sudden, you're mentally not focused on your job. You're not watching all the reps. You're worried about what you can't control, which is the coach putting you in instead of just being ready to control plays when he does put you in.
Okay, awesome. So, due to your success in the portal, how do you decide how many high school kids to take from year to year versus portal guys? And what are some of the factors that influence that decision?
Yeah, that's it. That's a changing landscape. Now we're 2 years into the portal, and then, just gets 1 year into the change of even more people going in because multiple times to the portal in the 2 different windows. So that's an ongoing thing, and there's no exact numbers to it because we may lose guys to the draft. We may lose other guys that leave who have got to go to the portal more. But we would like to lower that and make that more high school heavy.
Really appreciate it from everyone in this room. We got a nice room here with parents and athletes. We all want to give your condolences as an amazing coach, and we would like to give that to you. And we appreciate your time and answering some of our questions.
All right, Richie, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks to everybody. Good luck. Have a great Sunday.
Now, like always, I created a doc that has the complete transcript as well as a checklist you can use to make sure you got the most out of this interview. I'll leave that in the description below. And if you got value from this video and you'd like to see more videos just like it, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. And if you'd like to learn more about this brand new NCAA settlement that increases scholarships but decreases roster sizes, that's going to catastrophically change college football, then you're going to want to watch this video right here.